I stared at my reflection in the restaurant's bathroom mirror, gripping the marble counter until my knuckles turned white. Tonight was supposed to be my celebration, my MBA graduation dinner. Instead, it would be the night I destroyed everything my family held dear. My name is Scarlett, and I've spent 28 years being the family disappointment, the forgotten daughter, the one who would never amount to anything. But that changes tonight. I smoothed my black dress and checked my lipstick one final time. Through the door, I could hear my brother Zachary's booming laugh, the golden child holding court as usual. Taking a deep breath, I stepped back into the private dining room of Le Blanc, Dad's favourite restaurant for special occasions. "There she is," Zachary called out, raising his wine glass. "The graduate herself, though I still can't believe you chose business school over law. Such a waste." Mum gave me a tight smile. "Scarlett, honey, you missed your father's toast." "Did I?" I slid into my seat, noting how Dad barely glanced up from his phone. "I'm sure it was lovely." "It was about legacy," Zachary said, straightening his designer tie. "About carrying on the family name at Wise Tech Solutions. Speaking of which," he looked expectantly at Dad. Dad finally put his phone down, reaching into his jacket pocket. "Yes, well, since we're celebrating achievements tonight," he pulled out a small box and slid it across the table to Zachary. My brother's eyes lit up as he opened it, revealing a set of keys. "No way! The new Porsche 911? You've earned it, son," Dad beamed. "The company's third-quarter numbers were outstanding under your leadership. This time next year, you'll be ready to take over as CEO." I took a long sip of wine, letting the familiar ache of invisibility wash over me. Same story, different day, even at my own graduation dinner? "Actually," I set down my glass carefully, "I have an announcement too. Did you finally start dating someone suitable?" Mum perked up. "That last boy, what was his name? Cole? He came from such a common background." "No, Mother. This is about business." I reached into my purse and pulled out a leather keychain, placing it deliberately next to Zachary's car keys. Specifically about Wise Tech Solutions. Dad's fork clattered against his plate. "What about it?" "Well, you see, while Zachary was busy shopping for sports cars, I've been shopping too." I smiled, feeling years of pent-up satisfaction bubble to the surface. "For companies." Zachary snorted. "What are you talking about?" "Over the past 18 months, my tech startup has been quietly acquiring shares in Wise Tech Solutions through various shell corporations." I turned to Dad, whose face had gone ashen. "As of 9 a.m. tomorrow morning, I own 51% of your company." The silence that followed was deafening. Mum's hand flew to her throat. Zachary's mouth opened and closed like a fish. But it was Dad's expression, that beautiful mixture of shock and dawning horror that made all those years of degradation worth it. That's impossible," he sputtered. The board already voted," I cut him off. "Sterling was particularly helpful in securing their support. Turns out not everyone appreciates your traditional management style." Zachary lunged across the table, sending wine glasses crashing. "You little snake, you can't do this." "I already did." I stood up slowly, smoothing my dress again. "The papers will be signed first thing tomorrow. I suggest you clean out your office tonight." "Charles," Mum whispered, clutching Dad's arm, "do something." But Dad just sat there, staring at me like he'd never seen me before. In a way, he hadn't. He'd been too busy looking at Zachary to notice me building an empire right under his nose. "Oh, and Zachary." I picked up his new car keys and dropped them in his wine glass. "You might want to hold off on that Porsche. I hear unemployment can be rough on the finances." I grabbed my purse and headed for the door, pausing only briefly to savour the devastation I'd left in my wake. 28 years of being told I wasn't good enough, wasn't smart enough, wasn't worthy enough of the Wise name. Now I owned it all. But this was only step one. As I stepped into the warm summer night, my phone buzzed with a text from Yasmin. "Is it done?" I smiled, hailing a cab. "It's done, and they have no idea what's coming next. Because revenge, like the best business deals, is all about timing. And I was just getting started. The memory hit me like a slap as I sat in my office the next morning, staring at the WiseTech acquisition papers. I was 16 again, standing in Dad's study, while he tore my college applications to shreds. MIT? Stanford? Don't be ridiculous, he'd sneered, letting the pieces flutter to his mahogany desk. You're barely managing B's at Riverside Prep. Your brother was top of his class. I'm taking advanced classes, I protested, fighting back tears. And I started that coding club. A waste of time, he cut me off. Face reality, Scarlett. You're average, mediocre. The sooner you accept that, the better. That night, I'd made my first real business plan, scribbling in my journal until dawn. Not that anyone noticed. They were too busy celebrating Zachary's acceptance to Harvard. My office phone buzzed, jolting me back to the present. Your brother is here, my assistant said. He's quite insistent. Send him in. I straightened my blazer, ready for the storm. Zachary burst through the door, still wearing yesterday's clothes. How long have you been planning this? Close the door. Answer me. He slammed his hands on my desk. Was this why you were asking Sterling all those questions about our patents? Playing the sweet, clueless little sister? I met his glare coolly. Remember career day in high school, when Dad came to speak about entrepreneurship? What does that have to do with... You introduced him to your entire class, called him your hero. Meanwhile, I was sitting in the back row and he didn't even know I was there. I leaned forward. That's when I decided to take everything from you. Zachary laughed, but it was hollow. You're insane. The board will never accept you as CEO. They already have. 7 votes to 2 this morning. I slid a document across the desk. Your termination papers. Security will escort you out. Dad will fight this. Dad can't even access his email anymore. IT protocols changed at midnight. I stood up. You know what the funny thing is? If either of you had bothered to read the quarterly reports I've been sending for the past year, you'd have seen this coming. But you were too busy buying sports cars and planning yacht parties. His face reddened. This company is my birthright. Birthright? I scoffed. While you were coasting on Dad's reputation, I was building something real. My tech startup is worth 3 times what WiseTech is now. I didn't need your company. I wanted it. Security appeared in the doorway. Zachary's shoulders slumped as reality finally sank in. One more thing, I called, as they led him out. That corner office? The one Dad promised you? I'm turning it into a break room. Once he was gone, I called Yasmin. How's the stock looking? Up 12% since the announcement. The market likes the merger. She paused. But Scarlett, there's something else. Those patent issues we found. They're worse than we thought. Someone's been falsifying documentation. My stomach tightened. Zachary? No. The signatures go back 15 years. It had to be your father. I closed my eyes, remembering another moment from the past. I was 22, fresh out of college, pitching my first business idea to Dad. A tech startup? He'd laughed over his whiskey. You can barely operate your phone. Leave the real business to your brother. That night, I'd met Yasmin at a dive bar near campus. I'll show them, I'd slurred, drawing diagrams on a napkin. I'll build something so big they can't ignore me. Yasmin had believed in me when no one else did. Now she was my CFO, and that napkin diagram had turned into a billion-dollar company. My phone buzzed with a text from Julia, my lawyer. Your father's trying to call an emergency board meeting. Want me to block it? No, I typed back. Let him try. I want him to feel as helpless as I did all those years. Another message popped up from Mum. What have you done to this family? I didn't reply. Instead, I walked to the window, looking out at the city skyline. Somewhere out there, Dad was probably raging in his study, Zachary was drowning his sorrows in expensive scotch, and Mum was trying to preserve her perfect family illusion. But their perfect world was built on lies, and I had all the proof I needed to burn it down. My phone buzzed again. An anonymous message. Back off, WiseTech. This won't end in your favour. I smiled, taking a picture of my new office view and sending it to the unknown number. Too late, I wrote. It already has. The game was on, and I had all the pieces in place. They thought this was about money or power. They had no idea it was about something much more satisfying. Justice. Those patent irregularities are just the beginning, Sterling said, sliding a USB drive across my desk. Your father's been playing fast and loose with the books for years. I raised an eyebrow. And you're just sharing this now? Look, I respected Charles once. Sterling loosened his tie. But watching him and Zachary run this company into the ground while taking all the credit for other people's work. He shook his head. Someone needed to stop them. Julia, my lawyer, was already plugging the drive into her laptop. This is gold, she murmured, scanning the files. With this evidence we can... A knock interrupted us. Cole stood in the doorway, his familiar crooked smile making my heart skip, despite everything. Hey, stranger, he said. Heard you staged quite the coup. We're in a meeting, I replied coldly, but he stepped in anyway. Come on, Scar. I know we ended things badly, but I'm still proud of you. He gestured at my new office. Look at all this. You finally proved them wrong. Sterling and Julia exchanged glances. We should give you 2 a minute, Julia said, gathering her things. Once they left, Cole perched on my desk like he used to do at my startup's first office. Remember when this was just a dream? Late nights, takeout dinner, you ranting about showing your family what you could do? What do you want, Cole? Can't I congratulate my ex on her success? He reached for my hand, but I pulled away. I've missed you, you know. Missed me? I laughed bitterly. Or missed having inside access to my company's plans? His smile faltered. That's not fair. Neither was sleeping with my assistant while we were together, but that didn't stop you. My phone buzzed. A text from Yasmin. Emergency. Server room. Now. You need to leave, I told Cole, standing up. And don't come back. I found Yasmin in the server room, her face illuminated by multiple screens. Someone's trying to access our secure files, she said, without looking up. They're good. Really good. Can you stop them? Already did, but... She pointed to a trace program. The attack came from inside WiseTech. Zachary, I growled. No, this is too sophisticated for him. Someone else is helping them. I thought of Cole's convenient appearance. Keep monitoring everything. And Yasmin, don't trust anyone I don't explicitly clear. Back in my office, I found another anonymous note on my desk. Last warning. Walk away now. Ms. Wise? My assistant poked her head in. Your mother's here. Mum swept in, wearing her signature pearls and disapproval. We need to talk about your father. Unless he's ready to explain the fraudulent patents, we have nothing to discuss. He built this company from nothing. She slammed her hands on my desk. Everything you have, your education, your opportunities, came from his hard work. No, I corrected her. Everything I have came from my hard work. While you were all dismissing me as the family failure, I was building my own empire. By stealing your brother's inheritance. By earning what I deserved. I stood up, my voice rising. Where were you, Mum? All those years he tore me down, made me feel worthless. Where were you? She flinched. I was protecting you, making you stronger. Stronger, I laughed. You were protecting yourself. It was easier to let him target me than stand up to him yourself. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. You chose your comfortable life over your daughter. Now excuse me, I have a company to run. After she left, I called Julia. How quickly can we audit the last 15 years of WiseTech's books? Give me 2 weeks. But Scarlett? She hesitated. Are you sure you want to pull that thread? What we find could send your father to prison. Do it. That evening, I met Yasmin at our old college bar. Remember that night I first told you about my revenge plan? I asked, nursing a whiskey. You were drunk and crying because your dad had just told you your first company would fail. She smiled. I thought you were crazy, but brilliant. And now? Now? She studied me. Now I'm worried about what happens after you win. Revenge is like a drug, Scarlett. When do you stop? When they've lost everything, I said, but the words felt hollow. My phone lit up with a message from Sterling. Your brother just called an emergency board meeting for tomorrow. Says he has evidence of corporate espionage. I showed Yasmin the text. Looks like they're making their move. Are you ready? I thought about Cole's sudden reappearance, the anonymous threats, my mother's visit. Everyone was playing their parts exactly as I'd predicted. They think they're setting a trap, I said, finishing my drink. But I'm already 10 steps ahead. What they didn't know was that tomorrow's board meeting wasn't their chance to expose me. It was my chance to expose them all. The boardroom fell silent as Zachary strode in, briefcase in hand, Dad close behind him. I kept my face neutral, though my pulse quickened. They looked too confident. Before we begin, Zachary announced, I have evidence that my sister's hostile takeover was based on stolen information. He pulled out a stack of documents. Information obtained through corporate espionage. That's a serious accusation, Julia said from beside me. I assume you have proof? Oh, I do. Zachary's smile was razor-sharp as he clicked open his briefcase. Emails, strategy documents, details about WiseTech's vulnerabilities that only an insider would know. My stomach dropped as he started passing out copies. I recognized the documents immediately. They were from my private server, the ones I'd only shared with. Cole sends his regards, Zachary smirked. The boardroom erupted in murmurs. I forced myself to breathe steadily, even as rage and betrayal threatened to choke me. These documents, Zachary continued, prove that Scarlett used illegally obtained information to orchestrate her takeover. The acquisition should be nullified immediately. Actually, Sterling spoke up, those documents prove something else entirely. He stood, straightening his tie. They prove that your father has been committing tax fraud for over a decade. Dad's face went purple. What are you talking about? The patent irregularities. Sterling pulled out his own file. They were cover-ups for systematic financial fraud, money laundering through shell companies, falsified R&D expenses, hidden offshore accounts. You treacherous bastard, Dad snarled, lunging for Sterling, but security stepped between them. Order! The board chairman banged his gavel. Ms. Wise, how do you respond to these allegations of corporate espionage? I stood slowly, my hands steady despite the chaos in my mind. The documents my brother presented were indeed from my private server, stolen by Cole Morrison, who was paid to infiltrate my company. I nodded to Julia, who distributed her own packets. Here's the proof. Bank transfers from Zachary to Cole, along with their email correspondence planning the theft. Zachary's smug expression cracked. That's not... As for the information about WiseTech's vulnerabilities, I continued, I obtained that legally through Sterling, who came to me with concerns about financial misconduct. Everything was properly documented and above board. She's lying, Dad shouted. But the damage was done. Board members were already poring over Julia's evidence, their faces growing darker by the minute. My phone buzzed, a news alert. My heart stopped as I read the headline, Breaking, WiseTech Solutions, CEO accused of massive financial fraud. Turn on the news, I ordered, and the boardroom's wall screen flickered to life. There it was, splashed across every major business channel. Dad's picture, alongside details of the fraud Sterling had uncovered. You leaked this? Dad's voice was deadly quiet. No, I replied. Your own greed did. The boardroom doors burst open as reporters flooded the hallway outside, cameras flashing. Zachary grabbed his briefcase and ran. Dad stood frozen, watching his empire crumble in real time. This meeting is adjourned, the chairman announced. Pending federal investigation, all current business operations will continue under the new leadership. Security began clearing the room. As Dad was led out, he turned to me one last time. You're still that same pathetic little girl, he spat, just better at hiding it. Once everyone was gone, I slumped in my chair, the adrenaline leaving me shaking. Yasmin rushed in, laptop in hand. Our stock is tanking, she reported grimly. The fraud allegations are spooking investors. It'll recover, I said, but my voice sounded hollow even to me. Scarlett. Yasmin sat beside me. Cole called. He left a message. I played it on speaker. I'm sorry, Scar. Business is business. I hope someday you'll understand. The familiar ache of betrayal twisted in my chest. I'd let him in, not just to my company, but to my heart. And he'd sold me out to the very people I was fighting against. What now? Yasmin asked softly. I looked out the boardroom windows at the city below, remembering all the nights I'd spent planning this revenge. But I'd never planned for how empty it would feel. Now? I deleted Cole's message. Now we rebuild, stronger than before. My phone buzzed again. Another anonymous text. You should have backed off when you had the chance. The truth about your startup's funding is next. I showed it to Yasmin, whose face went pale. They couldn't know about that, she whispered. Unless Cole took more than just those documents. I stood up, straightening my jacket. Call Julia. Tell her to prepare for war. Because if they thought exposing Dad's fraud was my endgame, they had no idea what I was capable of when truly cornered. The real fight was just beginning. They found the offshore accounts, Yasmin announced, bursting into my office at midnight. Cole must have accessed our encrypted files. It's all over the financial news. I stared at my laptop screen, watching my company's stock price plummet in real time. 3 years of careful planning, unraveling because I'd trusted the wrong person. How bad? I asked, though I already knew the answer. The SEC is investigating. They're saying your startup's initial funding came from questionable sources. Yasmin slumped into a chair. We're looking at potential criminal charges. My phone rang. Julia. Turn on CNN, she said without preamble. There was Cole, standing at a podium, playing the role of the concerned whistleblower perfectly. I couldn't stay silent when I discovered the truth, he was saying. The same fraudulent practices she accused her father of. She's been doing them herself. That lying snake, Yasmin hissed. I muted the TV, my mind racing. Get Sterling on the phone now. Sterling answered on the first ring. I assume you've seen the news? I need everything you have on Zachary's personal accounts. Every transaction, every dinner receipt, every parking ticket. Already on it. But Scarlett... He hesitated. There's something else. Your brother's been meeting with someone from your past. Someone who might know about Dubai. My blood ran cold. Only 3 people knew what really happened in Dubai, and 2 of them were in this room. Who? Your old partner? The one you bought out before launching the startup. Marcus? Yasmin's eyes widened. But he signed an NDA. NDAs don't mean much when there's revenge involved, I said, remembering Marcus's threats when I forced him out. Find him. The next morning, I walked into WiseTech's lobby to find reporters swarming. Ms. Wise, is it true your startup was funded with laundered money? Ms. Wise, did you frame your father to hide your own fraud? I pushed through them into the elevator, my phone buzzing constantly. Investors pulling out. Board members demanding explanations. My mother's text. Are you happy now? You've destroyed everything. Julia was waiting in my office. I have good news and bad news. Bad first. The SEC has frozen your personal accounts pending investigation. I sat down heavily. And the good? Sterling found Marcus. He's been staying at the Four Seasons in Zachary's corporate suite. Got you, I whispered. Then louder. Call the car, I'm paying Marcus a visit. Scarlett, Julia grabbed my arm. Don't do anything stupid. They're waiting for you to make a mistake. But I was already heading out, rage propelling me forward. In the car, I pulled up an old photo on my phone. Marcus and me in Dubai, both smiling, unaware of what would happen next. The Four Seasons lobby was quiet when I walked in. Too quiet. Well, well, Marcus's voice came from behind me. The Queen herself. I turned slowly. He looked older, harder, but still had that same smirk that had once charmed investors. How much did my brother pay you? I asked. Not nearly as much as you paid to keep me quiet 3 years ago. He stepped closer. But this isn't about money. This is about watching you fall. I have copies, I said quietly, of everything. One call and both our lives are over. His smirk faltered. You're bluffing. I pulled out my phone, showing him a folder labelled Dubai Contingency. Try me. You crazy bitch, he breathed. You'd burn yourself to take me down. I learned from the best. I stepped closer. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to call my brother, tell him you made a mistake. Then you're going to disappear. Permanently. Or what? Or I release everything. The real story of how we got our seed funding. The truth about that night in Dubai. All of it. He studied my face, looking for weakness. Finding none. You've changed, he said finally. You have no idea. Back in my office, Yasmin was waiting. Marcus just recanted everything. Said he was mistaken about Dubai. I nodded. pouring myself a drink. Have Sterling leak the evidence of Zachary's payoffs to the press. Show everyone who the real frauds are. And Cole? I smiled, remembering the backup server he didn't know about. Send him the files we discussed. Let him see exactly what happens to people who betray me. My phone buzzed. A message from Zachary. This isn't over. No, I typed back, but it will be soon. Because while they were focused on exposing my past, they'd forgotten one crucial detail. I had nothing left to lose, and everything to gain. The evidence against Cole just went live. Yasmin announced, her laptop displaying headlines across major tech blogs. Every dirty deal, every betrayal, every cent your brother paid him. I watched the notifications flood my phone as the story spread. Cole's reputation in the tech world was imploding in real time. His company's investors were pulling out. His board was calling for his resignation. He's trying to call you? Yasmin said. Send it to voicemail. We have bigger problems. I pulled up the latest WiseTech financial reports. Dad's been moving money again. Large transfers to offshore accounts. He can't do that. His assets are frozen. Unless... I sat up straighter. Unless he's using Mum's accounts, the ones we didn't know about. My office door burst open. Julia rushed in, breathless. Zachary just called an emergency shareholder meeting. Tomorrow morning. He can't. He doesn't have the authority. He does now. Your mother just transferred her shares to him. The pieces clicked into place. While we were focused on Cole and Marcus, they'd been orchestrating their counterattack. Get Sterling in here, now. 20 minutes later, Sterling arrived with a thick folder. You were right about your mother's accounts. There's a whole network of them, dating back decades. Can we freeze them? Yasmin asked. Already done. But... Sterling hesitated. There's something else. Something about your grandfather's original ownership of the company. I leaned forward. What about it? According to these documents, he had a partner. Someone who owned 40% of WiseTech before your father forced them out. Someone who... My phone rang. Dad's number. Put it on speaker, Julia advised. Hello, Dad. 1 hour, he said, without preamble. The old steakhouse downtown. Come alone. Why should I? Because I have the Dubai files. The real ones. My blood ran cold. I looked at Yasmin, who shook her head frantically. See you in an hour, I said, and hung up. It's a trap, Julia warned. Of course it is. I stood up, grabbing my coat. That's why you're all coming with me. The steakhouse was nearly empty when I arrived. Dad sat in his usual corner booth, looking older than I'd ever seen him. Sit, he commanded as I approached. Where's Zachary? Does it matter? He pushed a glass of whiskey toward me. You've won, Scarlett. The company, the reputation, everything. Happy now? I didn't touch the drink. What do you want? To tell you a story about your grandfather and his partner, about how some things in business require difficult decisions. You mean like forcing out your father's partner? Stealing their shares? His eyes narrowed. You found the records. I found everything, Dad. Every dirty deal, every betrayal, just like you taught me. He laughed, but there was no humour in it. You really are my daughter. I'm nothing like you. No? He leaned forward. Then why does this feel so familiar? A child destroying their parents' legacy? History repeats itself, Scarlett. Movement caught my eye. Zachary slipping in through the kitchen door. Speaking of history, I said loudly, how's Mum handling the frozen accounts? Dad's smile faltered. What? Her secret accounts? The ones you've been using to move money offshore? They're frozen now too. Zachary reached our table, face flushed. The SEC just called. They're expanding the investigation. Of course they are, I stood up, because I gave them everything. Every document, every transaction, every secret account, even the Dubai files. You're bluffing, Dad snarled. I pulled out my phone, showing them the email confirmation from the SEC. Check the news in about 30 seconds. As if on cue, both their phones started buzzing. Breaking news alerts. Their faces went pale as they read. You'll go down with us, Zachary warned. Maybe, but I built something real. My company will survive without me. Can you say the same? I turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and Dad? Grandfather's partner? His granddaughter is very interested in reclaiming her family's shares. Julia's meeting with her lawyers right now. The look of absolute defeat on his face was almost worth everything I'd sacrificed. Almost. Outside, Yasmin was waiting in the car. Did they buy it? Hook, line, and sinker. I smiled grimly. How long until they realized the SEC email was fake? Long enough for the real evidence to hit tomorrow morning. My phone buzzed. A message from Julia. It's done. The partner's granddaughter is on board. We move at dawn. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying your enemies. It's letting them destroy themselves. The courthouse steps were swarming with reporters when Dad was led out in handcuffs. I watched from my car across the street as camera flashes lit up the morning grey. Federal agents raided WiseTech offices this morning. The news anchor's voice came through my car radio. Sources say the investigation has uncovered decades of systematic fraud. My phone buzzed. Zachary. You happy now? His voice was slurred. They're charging him with 36 counts of fraud. Where are you? Why? Want to watch me get arrested too? I heard ice cubes clinking in a glass. You're at Mum's, aren't you? She won't stop crying. Keep saying it's all her fault. He laughed bitterly. Maybe it is. She knew what Dad was doing all along. Zachary? You know what's funny? He kept saying you weren't cut out for business, but you're exactly like him. Maybe worse. The line went dead. Inside WiseTech's offices, the mood was funeral-like. Employees huddled in corners, whispering. Some were already packing their desks. The board's waiting, Yasmin said, meeting me at the elevator. How bad? Bad. Sterling's resignation hit the morning papers. 3 other board members followed. The boardroom fell silent as I entered. Julia sat at one end, surrounded by legal documents. The remaining board members looked shell-shocked. The SEC investigation has expanded, the chairman announced. They're looking into every transaction for the past 20 years. Let them look, I said, taking my seat. We have nothing to hide, don't we? An older board member slid a folder across the table. These just came to light. Documents about your startup's early funding. Something about Dubai? My heart stopped. I glanced at Yasmin, who had gone pale. Those records were sealed, Julia interjected. Nothing stays sealed forever. The board member leaned forward. Care to explain where that initial 10 million really came from? Before I could answer, my phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. Check your email, now. I opened my inbox to find a video file. My hands shook as I played it. It was security footage from a Dubai hotel, dated 3 years ago. Me, Marcus, and a group of investors. The night everything changed. If this goes public, Julia whispered, everything we've built. The board needs answers, the chairman said. Now. I stood up slowly, looking at each face around the table. 3 years ago, I made a choice. A terrible choice. The kind of choice my father would have made. What kind of choice? Someone asked. I let Marcus take the fall for a failed deal, one that would have destroyed our startup before it began. He went to jail for 6 months, while I used the scandal to buy out his shares for pennies. The room erupted in murmurs. Just like your father did to his partner? The chairman said quietly. Yes. I felt sick saying it. I became exactly what I hated. My phone buzzed again. Another anonymous text. Karma's a bitch, isn't it? The board will need to convene privately, the chairman announced. Ms. Wise, please wait outside. In the hallway, Yasmin grabbed my arm. We need to talk about Cole. What about him? He's gone public with everything. Dubai, the startup, even that night with Marcus. I leaned against the wall, feeling the weight of it all crash down. We knew this might happen. There's more? She showed me her tablet. Your mother's talking too, about the family secrets, the fraud, everything. A notification popped up. Mom was live on national television. My daughter, she was saying, tears in her eyes, became exactly what her father made her, and I helped create that monster. I switched it off, unable to watch more. What now? Yasmin asked softly. Before I could answer, Julia rushed out of the boardroom. They're voting to remove you as CEO. Can they do that? With the SEC investigation and these new allegations? Yes. My phone buzzed one final time. A message from Zachary. You got what you wanted. Are you happy now? I stared at the words, remembering all the times I'd dreamed of destroying my family's legacy. Now I had, and taken myself down with it. Ms. Wise, my assistant appeared. Your father's asking to see you, at the detention centre. I looked at Yasmin and Julia, my closest allies in this war of my own making. Tell him I'll be there in an hour. Because maybe, just maybe, it was time to face the truth about what I'd become, and what it had cost me. The detention centre's visiting room smelled of industrial cleaner and stale coffee. Dad sat across from me in his orange jumpsuit, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. Come to gloat? He asked. No. I placed a thick folder on the table between us. I came to make a deal. He raised an eyebrow. What kind of deal? I found grandfather's original partner's granddaughter, Sarah. She's willing to drop her claim to Wise Tech shares on one condition. I slid the folder toward him. You tell the truth, about everything. And why would I do that? Because I have something you want. I pulled out a second folder. Evidence that Mom knew nothing about the fraud, that you forged her signatures, used her accounts without her knowledge. His hands twitched. You're bluffing. Am I? I opened the folder. These documents prove you acted alone. Mum goes free, keeps her assets, but only if you confess. He stared at the papers for a long moment. You really are my daughter. No, I stood up. I'm better than that. You have until tomorrow to decide. Outside, Yasmin was waiting. The board meeting's in an hour. They're voting on your removal. Good. She blinked. Good. I'm stepping down anyway, recommending you as interim CEO. Scarlett, I built this company to prove something, I cut her off. To prove I wasn't worthless. But somewhere along the way, I became exactly what I was fighting against. My phone buzzed. Julia. Turn on the news. Now. We rushed to my car and flipped on the radio. Dad's voice filled the space. I, Charles, confess to all charges of fraud and financial misconduct. I acted alone, using my wife's accounts without her knowledge. Furthermore, I admit to forcing out my father's original partner through illegal means. He actually did it, Yasmin whispered. That's not all. Julia's voice came through the phone. Zachary just turned himself in, confessed to everything with Cole, the corporate espionage, all of it. I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of years lift from my shoulders. Send the Dubai files to the SEC. What? Yasmin grabbed my arm. That'll destroy you. Maybe it's time to stop destroying and start rebuilding. The boardroom was packed when I arrived. I walked to the front, facing the people I'd fought so hard to impress. 3 years ago in Dubai, I began. I made a choice that started me down this path. I became what I hated most, someone who would destroy others to win. Murmurs filled the room. I'm stepping down as CEO. The SEC already has my full confession about Dubai. But before I go, I have one last thing to do. I motioned to Julia, who started distributing documents. These are the true ownership papers for Wise Tech. I'm transferring my shares to a trust to be managed by a board of independent directors. The profits will fund scholarships for underprivileged students in business and technology. The room erupted in chaos. Questions flew from all directions. Why? Someone finally asked. Because legacy isn't about power or revenge. It's about what you build for others. Later that evening, I sat in my empty office one last time. A knock at the door made me look up. Ms. Wise. A young woman stood there, maybe 16, clutching a laptop. I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm an intern in IT, and I wanted to thank you. For what? For showing that we don't have to accept what others say we are. She stepped forward. My dad says tech isn't for girls, that I should study something more suitable. But seeing you build all this, I thought of myself at her age, sketching business plans in secret. What's your name? Amy. I reached into my desk and pulled out my old journal, filled with the dreams and plans that had started everything. Here. I handed it to her. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying what hurt you. It's building something better in its place. My phone buzzed one last time. A message from Mum. I just heard your announcement about the trust. Your grandfather would be proud. I smiled, looking out at the city skyline. Tomorrow, the headlines would tell a different story. Not about revenge or destruction, but about redemption. Because sometimes winning isn't about taking everything. Sometimes it's about giving it all away and building something new from the ashes of what was lost.